我也想留点。我们老师就教这么些出点。写个个好写。
It's a typical day here in Chengde as families spend time together. Mums, dads, and like many cities in China, their kids. Chengde in northern China's Hebei province is one of the few areas in this country of more than 1.3 billion where couples are allowed to have kids as opposed to kid. But rather than witnessing a population explosion, the birth rate in Chengde has declined. No other country on earth has so strongly controlled the birth rate of its citizens. Introduced as a form of population control, it's estimated China's one-child policy has averted around 200 million births since its introduction in 1979. The ruling government now says couples where one partner is an only child can have a second baby. It's sparked fierce debate here on how China will cope with potentially millions of extra babies. There's no better case study than Chengde. Since 1986, authorities here have implemented a two-child policy. If both parents are registered as rural residents, they're allowed to have a second baby. Here, offspring are highly valued as a source of labour, with boys even more sought after as heirs. But rather than leading to a spike in the birth rate, according to 2012 figures, the number of babies born here has actually dropped by more than 1.85%. Going against the theory of enforced population control, couples here have made up their own mind on whether to have a second child. Like Dad Lin Ping.
We didn't have enough money. Both of us had to work, and we couldn't afford another child. Even though we were allowed to have a second child, we chose to have just one.
Lin's son is now married and about to have his own child.
I had no regrets. Why should I be regretful? I would have had 2 kids if we'd had enough money. It was our only choice.
Li Guohong had to quit school young to help support her family. She says she wanted more for her son.
Our first child was a son, but even if it had been a girl, we wouldn't have had a second child. If we'd had another kid, I couldn't have worked for years and my husband would have faced great economic pressure. Now we only have one and we can take good care of him and send him to a better school. The quality of our life is also much better.
Li and Lin are not alone. Statistics show more than 10% of couples in Chengde have registered with local authorities to say they intend to have just one child. But for some, the desire for a second child is still strong.
Children feel lonely without a sibling. Both my sisters only have one child, and they felt lonely after their kids went to boarding school. Even though it's tiring raising 2 kids, I feel lucky that I decided to have 2. Many of my classmates don't have siblings, so they envy me very much. In the holidays, I take my younger brother out to play. I now feel like a grown-up.
Leng Guancheng says he's a lucky man. His eldest daughter was born in 1980, and 1 year after the two-child policy came out, he and his wife welcomed their second.
We were busy with our business and planned to give up on the idea of having another child. But our financial situation gradually got better, and so we had a second child. I still hoped to have a son at that time, but after thinking it over, I gave up that idea. It's perfect to have 2 daughters.
It's a deviation from the strictly enforced policy which is being implemented in other areas of China's underdeveloped northwest. Regions in Shaanxi, Hubei and Gansu are also allowing all rural couples to have a second child. It follows an already existing policy in rural areas across China, where couples are also allowed to have a second child, but only if their firstborn is a girl. Debate rages over whether this new form of population control will worsen China's already skewed gender ratio. Thanks to the one-child policy, 117 boys are born in China for every 100 girls, far exceeding the norm of 107 to 100. If rural couples are allowed to have a second child, experts say male births could compound an already worrying demographic trend. Rather than being at the epicenter of population explosion, back in Chengde, all is well on the home front.
The birth rate of Chengde County is 1.31%, the gender ratio is 106, and the annual growth rate of the population is less than 0.6%. I think the overall population should stay at a stable level.
According to San Guo-ri from Chengde's Population and Family Planning Commission, Chengde City's population is actually expected to go backwards.
Since 1991, the birth rate of Chengde has been around 1%. The population is expected to reach its peak in the next 20 years. After that, it will start to decline.